Dear Libra, what if I told you that tomorrow, on September 14th, a woman will appear in your life and change everything? This isn't poetry, prediction, or coincidence, it's divine timing. And if you're watching this right now, please understand something very important. You were not supposed to miss this message. Welcome to Zodiac Whisper Tarot. This is not just another general horoscope. This is a deep soul reading created just for you, Libra, designed to align you with something far greater than what you can see. What's arriving tomorrow is more than an encounter. It is a turning point orchestrated by the universe to awaken something ancient and sacred within you. You may feel it already. That quiet hum beneath your skin, the sense that something is shifting but you can't quite name it yet. Let me be clear, you are being guided to prepare for the arrival of a very specific energy. The energy of a woman, not just any woman, but a carrier of transformation. She could show up as a guide, a stranger, a forgotten friend, a memory, or even as a version of your own divine feminine self waiting to rise. What matters is not who she is, but what she activates. Her presence will be the spark that disrupts everything static in your life, not with chaos, but with clarity. And Libra, if you've been walking through a season of silence, of imbalance, of wondering if your prayers are being heard, this is your sign. Your soul has called for a mirror, and tomorrow, the mirror arrives. Astrologically, the alignment is no accident. Venus, your ruling planet, is forming an intimate alignment with the moon across your 7th house of soul contracts and divine relationships. That's why you're here. Not to hear a forecast, but to remember who you are and what you're here to receive. So before we dive deeper into this message, which blends astrology, tarot, divine timing, and sacred inner wisdom, I want you to do something important. Not for me. For yourself. Anchor your energy by leaving a sacred comment below that says, "I am ready to receive the woman who changes everything." Write it with faith. Let that be your soul's signature. That act alone tells the universe that you are not just curious, you are ready. And Libra, while I have your attention, allow me to offer something from my heart. Thank you. Thank you for being here, for choosing this moment, and for bringing your energy into this sacred space. Every like, every comment, every subscription you offer doesn't just support this channel, it expands this soul family. Your presence allows us to keep showing up with messages that shift destinies. And trust me, beloved Libra, you'll want to stay with me until the very end of this reading. Because what the universe is about to reveal about you, your next chapter, and this divine feminine energize nothing short of extraordinary. Now, I ask you this. What do you think led you here today? Was it intuition? Was it longing? Or was it the silent pull of the woman who has already begun to change your story? Stay with me. What's next might just be the message your soul has been waiting years to hear. There's something almost imperceptible about the way energy moves before a divine encounter. And Libra, whether you realize it or not, the energy surrounding you as we approach September 14th is doing more than shifting, it's preparing you. Quietly. Intentionally. Celestially. As if the universe has spent months orchestrating a moment where timing, people, and purpose would all align. That moment is now approaching. Astrologically, you are standing at the intersection of two of the most intimate energies available to you, the Moon and Venus. When these two bodies align, especially across your 7th house, which governs soul contracts, divine partnerships, and sacred reflections. It creates what astrologers call a karmic mirror axis. It doesn't just stir up emotions or rekindle relationships, it activates something that feels older than this lifetime. It's as if your soul begins whispering, "You've met them before, not here, not now, but somewhere your heart remembers." Venus, your ruling planet, governs love, harmony, beauty, and attraction. The moon governs emotion, intuition, the unseen. Together, across the relationship house, they don't just predict romance, they signal soul-level awakening. This is the reason why so many Libras right now are sensing a presence they can't name, a longing that doesn't quite have a face. That woman, the one this message speaks of, she may not even physically walk into your life on September 14th. And yet, her energy has already begun to arrive. She might be a real person, yes. But she could also be the divine feminine aspect within you, the part of your soul that's been silenced, waiting to bloom again after a long winter. What's extraordinary is that while this energy may be cosmic in nature, its arrival in your life will likely be quiet. That's the influence of Mercury and Jupiter here, a gentle invitation to expand your perception, not through loud signs or flashing lights, but through subtle wisdom. She might show up as a thought that won't let go. A conversation that stirs something in you. A book that appears at just the right time. Don't underestimate the simplicity of her entrance. After all, isn't it true that some of the most transformative voices in your life never had to raise their volume to be heard? Think of this energy as a seed. One that won't sprout overnight, but one that will plant something unshakable in your foundation. She is here to realign your balance. Not to fix you, Libra, because you are not broken, but to mirror back to you a part of yourself you may have buried beneath roles, expectations, and responsibilities. In her presence, you might remember what it feels like to choose softness again. To trust yourself again. To receive, not as an obligation, but as your right. There is a passage I often reflect on, not from astrology, but from spiritual life, that says, God sends the right people at the right time, often when you least expect them. And I believe this is one of those times. Sometimes the answers to your deepest questions don't come as thunderclaps. They come as quiet people, placed carefully in your path to redirect you back toward yourself. And sometimes, they don't stay forever, but their impact echoes long after they've gone. This woman, in whatever form she comes, is not a savior. She is a signal. A gentle interruption from the divine. A reminder. And you, dear Libra, have the power to choose how you respond to her. Will you listen? Will you receive? Or will you ignore the quiet knock on the door of your soul because it didn't come the way you expected? If you've made it here, then perhaps part of you already knows. Part of you is ready. If you feel this shift, if your heart is opening even just a little, I invite you to ground that intention. Write it out. Declare it as yours. Comment below, I am ready to receive the healing frequency of the sacred woman. Let those words be your signature to the universe, not because you need to be saved, but because you're finally ready to remember who you really are. Let this be your beginning. Let this be the moment when the story starts to change. There are moments in life when change doesn't come as a thunderstorm but as a quiet breath, a knowing glance, a shift so subtle you almost miss it. And yet, Libra, those are often the moments when the soul begins to rewrite its story. Not from a blank page, but from the torn-out ones, the chapters you once thought you had to throw away, now returning as wisdom. As we step into the energy of this reading, we arrive at the part where the cards speak. And what they reveal is nothing short of a quiet resurrection. The Queen of Wands emerges first not just as a symbol of someone else, but as a mirror. She is you, and she is also the woman we spoke of earlier. Her energy is magnetic, assertive, nurturing, unapologetically creative. She does not wait to be chosen, she walks forward knowing she is the choice. When this card appears, it asks one question: are you ready to own your inner fire again? Not for anyone else, not to prove a point, but because somewhere deep down, you've always been that radiant force. You just forgot for a while. And now, the forgetting is over. Alongside her, the Two of Cups appears not in the context of romance alone, but in the deeper sense of soul meeting soul. This is the moment when reflection becomes recognition. A relationship may enter your life or evolve in unexpected ways, but the essence here is mutual understanding. This card is not about grand gestures. It's about the unspoken yes between two energies that know they are safe with each other. And the King of Cups follows, bringing emotional maturity and stability. If the Queen reminds you of your fire, the King reminds you of your depth, the part of you that has learned to feel without drowning. What these cards build together is not just a story of external connection, but of internal alignment. You are being called to bring together your courage and your compassion, your intuition and your intellect, your passion and your patience. When that happens, when your feminine and masculine energies begin to balance, transformation becomes inevitable. Then, we arrive at the star. A moment of hope, not naive hope, but the kind that returns after darkness. This card doesn't deny the pain you've walked through. It acknowledges it, and then says, you still get to dream again. The star is the healing water over the scar, the quiet light after the collapse. It reminds you that it's okay to want more, even after you've lost much. And sometimes, wanting more is the most radical thing you can do. The Judgment card follows not to condemn, but to awaken. It represents the call to rise into a new version of yourself, one that may have once felt impossible. It's the echo of your own name spoken from the future. And perhaps you're hearing it now, in this very moment, whispering that your time has come. There are parts of you that were never broken, only buried. This is your invitation to unearth them. And finally, the world. Completion. Integration. A full circle moment that says, you've made it through the storm. It doesn't mean the journey ends here. It means you've reached a point of truth where you can begin again, not as a reaction to pain, but as a choice rooted in power. Sometimes, in our busy lives, we forget that we are allowed to begin again. We forget that change doesn't have to be dramatic to be real. Just like in the stories of modern-day miracles, when a decision made in silence turns out to shift everything, or when someone quietly chooses faith over fear, and doors begin to open where there were only walls. Those small pivots can be the greatest interventions. So take a breath, Libra. If you feel your heart stirring, it's because your soul knows this is the moment. You are not being forced to change. You are being invited. And if something inside you is saying yes, even softly, then you are already on your way. If you feel called, I invite you to share in the comments, I am stepping into the new version of me. Let that be your vow to yourself, not because the old you wasn't enough, but because the new you is finally ready to be seen. Sometimes healing doesn't look like breaking down in tears. Sometimes it looks like quietly choosing to stop explaining yourself. Libra, as we continue this journey, I want you to understand that healing and abundance often arrive hand in hand softly, subtly, and in ways that feel more like remembering than starting over. You've given so much of yourself in ways that others may never fully recognize. You've shown up with love, even when the love wasn't returned. And yet, here you are still open, still curious, still willing to believe there is more for you. That willingness alone is sacred. When the soul has been through heartache, when you've loved the wrong person, trusted the wrong season, it's easy to begin believing that you're the problem. But the truth is, your heart knew how to give. Your light wasn't too much. It simply wasn't received by the right frequency. You weren't wrong for loving deeply, you were just asking to be seen by someone who could not see clearly. There is a quote I've carried with me for years: you didn't fail because you loved. You failed only when you stopped loving yourself in the process. And now, it's time to reclaim the part of you that forgot your own worth in someone else's story. In this season, the stars begin to realign around your 2nd and 8th houses, zones of personal value and shared resources. This cosmic influence doesn't just touch your wallet, it redefines how you value yourself. What is your time worth? Your energy? Your peace? These aren't just financial questions. They are soul-deep calibrations. The universe is preparing to return something to you that you thought was lost, a contract that circles back, a gift that seems too timely to be accidental, a door you thought was permanently closed suddenly opening again. But here's the catch: in order to receive what is being returned, you have to let go of the version of you who learned to survive without it. This is where money and healing intersect. Many of us were taught directly or subtly that money is tied to struggle, sacrifice, or self-worth. But that isn't the truth. The truth is, money is neutral energy. It is a tool. It's a reflection of what you believe you are worthy of receiving and how safe you feel letting life support you. And sometimes, the most radical act of self-care is simply allowing abundance to enter without guilt. You weren't born to worry about money. You were born to learn how to hold it, use it, and let it expand through gratitude. A practice I often share with clients is what I call the gratitude fund. It's not about how much you can save. It's about assigning value to your own willingness to heal. Each week or each month, set aside even a small amount of money. Label it something sacred. Let it be a physical reflection of your inner shift. Not a savings account for emergencies, but a fund for dreams. For freedom. For self-trust. And if you can, take one small action with it, no matter how modest, that affirms you are not in lack. You are in transformation. Life doesn't always shout when it's ready to bless you. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it shows up in the form of a returned email, a woman with a message, or a decision you quietly made last week that begins to ripple into your future. And Libra, I believe your ripples are becoming waves. You don't need to have it all figured out today. But what you can do is this: choose to no longer define yourself by what went wrong. You are not your past losses. You are the keeper of light that never stopped trying. And maybe, just maybe, that's why you're about to receive something that no longer requires you to explain your worth first. If any part of you is feeling this shift, I invite you to anchor it in your body and spirit. Comment below and affirm it out loud: I am open to receive all that is returning to me. Let that be your quiet revolution the moment your inner worth and outer life begin to match again. There comes a moment when love no longer feels like a performance, but a return. Libra, after all the proving, the overgiving, the wondering if you were too much or never enough, the universe is now guiding you toward a different kind of love, one that doesn't ask for your exhaustion as proof of your worth. This isn't about fairy tale romance or dramatic gestures. This is about breathing again in someone's presence, and knowing you don't need to shrink to be held. Love, when real, is not a transaction. It doesn't demand that you earn space. And the kind of love aligning for you now is deeply soul-based, rooted not in what someone needs from you but in who you are when you are simply being. In astrology, Venus rules your sign, and with this planet in gentle conversation with the Moon and Neptune, it's no coincidence that your heart is beginning to whisper more clearly. The energetic field around you is shifting to make room for a connection that is balanced, emotionally intelligent, and spiritually liberating. But to receive that, you must release the need to carry what doesn't belong to you anymore. So many of us are conditioned to believe that love must involve striving. That we must fix ourselves before being worthy of being chosen. But true love doesn't arrive once you've perfected yourself, it arrives when you start being honest. When you're no longer trying to hide the cracks, but showing up whole, even if you're still healing. Real love doesn't mind the mess. It just wants to sit next to you while you sweep the pieces together. I'm reminded of a quiet truth I've observed in people who have walked through deep disappointment. They often struggle more with receiving love than with giving it. Perhaps you've felt this too. Perhaps you've been the one who gave and gave, until giving became your identity. And now, you're learning that receiving is also an act of love, not weakness, not dependence, but courage. Because to let someone see you, really see you, without filters or shields, is one of the most vulnerable and sacred things you'll ever do. As we reflect on this turning point in your reading, I want to offer you a perspective I've carried from both energy work and life observation. The heart doesn't just open once and stay that way. It expands in seasons. And this season for you, Libra, is one of soft readiness. The kind of readiness that doesn't chase, but welcomes. The kind that doesn't demand perfection from others either, but mutual kindness, respect, and emotional presence. And if you're wondering whether you're ready, I'd invite you to shift that question. Ask instead, am I willing to let love feel different this time? Because readiness isn't about confidence, it's about openness. It's not about never being afraid, it's about being willing to try anyway. Just like the small modern-day miracles we see in life where someone chooses to forgive when no apology came, or opens their door to someone new despite a history of heartbreak, love often enters through the cracks we feared would break us. You don't need to prepare yourself for love like it's a test. You only need to clear enough space to recognize it when it arrives. You've done the heavy lifting. You've carried what wasn't yours to carry. Now is the time to create room for the connection that meets you where you are and then grows with you. If this resonates with your heart, even just a little, I invite you to anchor that willingness. Leave a comment below and write, I am ready to welcome love that lets me breathe. Let that be your affirmation. Not for the world. For you. Because you deserve love that feels like home, not a battlefield. And it starts with choosing to believe that the way you love is already enough. When the world grows quiet around you, it's easy to assume you've been forgotten. But what if the silence is not abandonment, but divine preparation? Libra, This phase of your life may feel like you're being pulled away from everything familiar. Friends drift, your usual comforts no longer soothe, and what once brought joy now feels hollow. But there's a reason. You're not lost, you're being led. You're being called to go inward, to rediscover the truth of who you are beneath all the noise. Just like the Hermit card in the tarot, this is your sacred pause, not a detour, but an invitation to clarity. The energy surrounding September 14th is especially potent. There's a cosmic alignment activating what we astrologers call the feminine energy portal, a spiritual gateway that enhances receptivity, emotional truth, and divine listening. You may feel more introspective, more sensitive, more in tune with the subtle currents of your soul. And while others may rush forward, trying to force clarity from chaos, you're being asked to slow down and listen for the whisper, not the shout. Because the next move in your life doesn't come from pressure. It comes from presence. In my years of guiding souls through transformation, I've seen time and time again how a single moment of inward stillness can alter everything. Like the story of a woman I once met, an ordinary woman on the outside, standing in line at a grocery store. But behind her quiet eyes was a deep well of wisdom. One day, she turned to a stranger in line, placed a hand on her shoulder, and said just 8 words, "You don't have to carry it anymore." That one sentence broke something open in that stranger's life, a woman who had been contemplating giving up entirely. That stranger found a new path because one soul answered the divine nudge to speak love. That's what inner rebirth looks like. It's not always grand or loud. Sometimes, it's simply the right word at the right time. Born from a quiet soul who had learned to listen. You are being called to become that kind of soul, not just for others, but for yourself. The Judgment card reveals a divine awakening, a rising of your spirit to answer a long-forgotten call. Maybe you've been too busy surviving to hear it. Maybe life got so loud, so heavy, that you tuned it out. But it never stopped calling. And now, in this exact window of time, the heavens are realigning so that you can hear it again. That whisper inside saying, "Come home." Not to a place but to the truest version of you. And yes, there is a kind of surrender here. A letting go of the masks you've worn, the burdens you've claimed, the roles you've been performing. But you're not surrendering to defeat. You're surrendering to truth. And in doing so, you'll find an ease you forgot was possible. You'll realize that your strength was never in holding everything together, but in trusting that something greater was holding you. Perhaps this is your chance to pause and ask, what part of me is trying to rise again? What have I buried under fear, under responsibility, under the expectations of others? What if this pause you're experiencing isn't punishment but protection? What if God is not hiding from you but hiding you until the right moment? If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. If you've been waiting for permission, you already have it. And if you've been waiting for the right time, let me gently remind you, the moment you choose to believe again is the moment things begin to shift. So take a deep breath. You don't need to rush. Your life is not late. The portal is open. The woman who changes everything may not be someone else's seat, may be you, returning to your center. And if that truth moves something in you, let it. Let it move you to light a candle, to journal your prayers, to rest without guilt, or even to reach out and tell someone, "I'm here for you." Sometimes, the most sacred rebirth begins with the smallest act of hope. And maybe, just maybe, this is the moment where your new story begins. Libra, this is your reminder that you are not the victim of fate, you are the author of a new story, a narrative shaped by faith, courage, and conscious action. The woman who enters tomorrow is not just a character in your external world, she is a divine mirror reflecting the inner readiness you've nurtured in silence. Her presence is a sacred nudge that the time has come to rise, to speak, to choose, and to begin again. Too often, we wait for signs while holding tightly to old pages. But maybe the sign you've been waiting for is already here, quietly knocking at the door of your heart. The story doesn't change when someone else appears, it begins to change the moment you decide to respond differently. Are you willing to open the door without needing all the answers first? Are you willing to believe that something good is trying to find you, even if it comes wrapped in unexpected timing? The new life awaiting you doesn't need perfection, it needs permission. It needs your yes, even if whispered through trembling hope. A yes to love again, to believe again, to try again. This is not about rushing forward blindly. It's about allowing space within for the seeds of transformation to take root. It's about learning to be led not by fear, but by the quiet rhythm of grace. It's about trusting that even the unknown is already known by something higher, something loving, something that wants the best for you. So take this moment now not to doubt, but to declare. Whisper it, write it, or type it below in the comments. I allow the woman of destiny to enter. I'm ready for my story to change. Let your words become your anchor. Let your voice call in what's been trying to reach you for years. And as you move through this beautiful portal of September 14th, stay grounded in the little things. Sip your chamomile tea in stillness. Breathe deeply before you fall asleep. Write down 3 things you're grateful for, even if money is tight, even if the road still feels uncertain. Speak out loud to yourself, or to God, or simply to the universe. Thank you for what's coming. I am ready. Each small habit, each tiny act of faith is how you rewrite your destiny. This is not just about romance, or money, or miracles appearing out of nowhere. This is about alignment. About receiving. About choosing to believe in beauty again, without needing proof in advance. You are the vessel. You are the story in motion. And yes, this new beginning may come through the voice of a woman, the smile of a stranger, or a line in a video you almost didn't watch. But the most important change is already happening. Inside you. If you feel that this message speaks to someone else in your life, someone who may be quietly holding pain, or waiting for a sign, please share this video with them. Be the reason they believe again. Be the bridge that leads them home. And from my heart to yours, may the light of the cosmos and the love of the divine wrap around you in every choice you make today. You are not alone. You have never been alone. And now, the page turns. Welcome the woman. Welcome the miracle. Welcome yourself, reborn. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with your spirit, subscribe to Zodiac Whisper Tarot, and let your comment below be a declaration of your transformation. Let's anchor this energy together because the story begins now.